The night of the graduation party was supposed to be a celebration, an end to one chapter and the beginning of another. For me, it became the night everything shattered. Leo, the boy Chloe had adored for as long as I could remember, confessed his feelings, but not to her. He did it in front of everyone, professing his love for her best friend, Megan. To escape the palpable sting of her heartache, Chloe drank. She drank far more than she should have, and in the ensuing chaos of blurred lights and loud music, things between us spiraled out of control. Later, after Leo and Megan had already broken up over a disagreement about their future college plans, I would overhear Chloe venting to her friend Sarah. Her words, slurred but sharp, cut through me. "You know, that night," she'd said, "I wasn't actually that drunk. I just wanted to see how pathetic someone could be. Just like I used to feel." She confessed that she regretted it now, and it suddenly made sense why Leo's name had tumbled so easily from her lips that night in the hotel room. At the time, I had genuinely believed she was intoxicated beyond reason. Seeing the regret cloud her face as she spoke to Sarah, I made a split-second decision to pretend I knew nothing, to bury the memory and the hurt that came with it. But when she later approached me, a hopeful glint in her eye, and generously revealed that she had applied to a university in H-Town, I knew I couldn't follow. I chose J-Town, the city furthest I could find from her. From that point on, our paths diverged completely. There was no need to see each other again. That night, I had been drinking heavily, too. By the time Chloe and I stumbled into the hotel room, my head was spinning, and the world felt unreal. I thought it was all a dream, a strange fantasy conjured by alcohol and wishful thinking. The girl who I was sure despised me was leaning over me, her lips tracing a path across my skin. As her kisses moved lower, a sudden, inexplicable wave of sadness washed over me, and I started to cry. I leaned in, trying to meet her kiss, but she pulled away with an instinctual flinch. It didn't surprise me. She had never shown any interest in me, never even spared me a second glance. I reasoned with myself that this was just some buried adolescent fantasy, a product of hormones and unrequited feelings. The dream felt plausible only because she detested me so much that the idea of her kissing me was something my waking mind could never conjure. In my dreams, a kiss was something shared between people who cared for each other, so it made a strange kind of sense that it never progressed further. My silent tears continued to fall until she broke the quiet, whispering a name directly into my ear. Her voice was raw and deep, yet I heard it with perfect clarity. "Leo," she asked, the single word squeezed from her chest with a bitter sorrow. "Leo, why?" It felt like a physical blow, each word landing like a needle in my heart. A heavy, acidic feeling settled in my chest, and my nose stung so intensely that I could barely draw a breath. I lay there, stunned and motionless. Then, she bit down, hard, on my shoulder. She had a distinctively sharp snaggletooth, and the piercing sting from the bite, combined with the dull ache in my tired legs, flooded my senses. In that singular moment of pain, the drunken fog in my head evaporated. This wasn't a dream. She was drunk, and she had mistaken me for Leo, the boy who had occupied her heart for 3 years, only to confess his love to her best friend right in front of her. I don't know why I drank so much that night. Watching her down one glass after another, I unconsciously matched her pace. My feelings for her were a deeply buried secret, something I never dared to voice for fear of utter humiliation. That familiar, bitter feeling of inadequacy was something I tried to drown with the burn of strong liquor. I just never imagined it would lead to this. The next morning, I surveyed the disheveled hotel room. My shirt was crumpled on my torso, several buttons torn off. I tried to stand and put it back on, but my legs trembled beneath me after only a few steps. I glanced over at Chloe, still asleep on the bed, and a sense of dread washed over me. I was terrified to wake her, unsure of how we could possibly face each other when she opened her eyes. Slipping on the hotel slippers, I tiptoed to the bathroom and turned on the tap, keeping the water pressure low as I washed up. My entire body ached. I had never imagined that an encounter like this could be so profoundly unsettling. Everything had happened too quickly, and my mind was still sluggish. But I knew one thing for certain. A terrible mistake had been made, and I couldn't allow it to become any larger than it already was. I wasn't sure if Chloe would remember anything at all. Given how much she already disliked me, she would probably assume I had taken advantage of the situation on purpose. I left the hotel and went to a nearby mall just to use the restroom to fix my hair and splash cold water on my face, trying to jolt myself into some semblance of normalcy. I was still officially staying at Chloe's house, and the thought of bumping into her filled me with anxiety. I wandered around the neighborhood for a while, killing time before gathering the courage to go back. I hoped I could sneak in without being noticed, but just as I was fitting the key into the lock, the door swung open. Chloe stood there, her expression as cold and distant as ever. For a moment, I clung to the hope that she had drunk so much she couldn't remember anything. She didn't say a word, but who would believe such a convenient fiction anyway? She barely ever acknowledged my existence with a glance. I wasn't typically afraid of her, and when she didn't press the issue, I was ready to slip past her and escape. Just then, my mother walked in from the patio, where she had been watering the plants. Her face was a mask of fury. "Alex," she seethed, "you're getting bold now, aren't you? Staying out all night, hanging around with who knows what kind of people." It was just the three of us in the living room, and her words struck me like a physical blow. I felt frozen, unable to move. It felt like I should be used to having my dignity trampled on by now, but I was still human. How could anyone ever get used to that? My eyes burned red, but I refused to show any weakness, lowering my head to fight back the tears. Suddenly, Chloe's voice cut through the tension. "Shut up." My mom fell awkwardly silent, not saying another word. I slipped past her and fled to my room. Chloe had always seemed to hate me, so much so that she wouldn't even bother wasting a single word on me. When we first met, she might have felt some pity for me, but my own desperate and grasping nature quickly soured that. Our first meeting was when her mother, Mrs. Anderson, brought her to her grandmother's house in my village for the summer. I didn't pay her much mind then, only retaining a vague memory of a bright smile and that distinctive snaggletooth, the same one I never expected would one day sink so fiercely into my skin. Later, in front of the mirror, the bite mark on my shoulder was a vivid, angry purple. It stung with every movement, a sharp reminder of Chloe's fierce nature. I changed my clothes, needing to head out for a tutoring gig I had managed to find. It was a rare opportunity that paid much better than handing out flyers. I figured I would deal with the wound after my class, but then I noticed a first aid kit sitting on the coffee table. Someone must have forgotten to put it away. I still had some time before my lesson, and my shoulder was throbbing, so I quietly grabbed the kit to tend to the injury, sneaking it back unseen. Just as I returned it, my mom noticed. "Alex, why did you take the first aid kit?" "I saw it was left out," I mumbled. "I just thought I'd put it back." "Who would leave it there?" she pressed, slowly approaching me with that familiar look in her eyes, always trying to dig up some secret she could use to embarrass me. I felt a prickle of fear. Just then, Chloe's door creaked open on the second floor. She peeked out, her face a mask of annoyance. "Can we please be quiet?" she said. "I just used the first aid kit." She rarely lost her temper or showed any open irritation at school, but she probably couldn't stand the sight of my mom and me. It was likely why she often didn't bother to hide her cold demeanor or her harsh words when we were around. I could guess why she disliked me. Who wouldn't dislike someone so greedy and self-centered? Back then, my mom had wanted me to drop out of school and go work in a factory. She expected me to help pay for my brother's education. My dad, on the other hand, was a ghost in our lives, present only when he was gambling, cheating, or coming home drunk after a loss to take his anger out on us. My mom often directed her frustrations at me. "If I hadn't gotten pregnant with you," she would say, "I would have divorced your dad long ago." As I entered my final year of middle school, her outbursts became more frequent. It got to the point where simply seeing me pack my school bag in the corner of the room was enough to trigger her rage. "You all just suck me dry. Just let me die already. Alex, I'm warning you, don't even dream about it. I've done more than enough by putting you through middle school. Stop dreaming that I'll keep supporting you." Middle school is part of mandatory education, I'd argue. And isn't the food and shelter I provide costing money? Do I owe this to you? To have you freeload and drain me until I'm dry? Will that make you happy? Her eyes would pierce me like sharp nails, pinning me in place like a captured animal, unable to escape its fate. Somewhere, deep inside, I found the courage to offer some weak resistance. "I've been working every summer. I work at the clothing factory in town, and I help with picking fruit, too." "So what? You think you shouldn't be doing something? Are you waiting for me to spoon-feed you like you're some kind of royalty? Whether you have a diploma or not, it won't matter. You might as well stop dreaming." No matter what I did, she was never satisfied. Even when I earned enough to cover my own expenses, she still saw me as her personal slave. I could make a little money during school breaks, but there were still school hours I couldn't work, and she hated seeing me in a classroom instead of a factory. I thought about fighting back, about becoming completely independent, but I was still a minor. I asked around, talking to older boys in the village who had gone on to high school. They all said the same thing. High school was intense, and it was unrealistic to think I could support myself solely through part-time jobs. But was relying on my mom to support me through high school any more realistic? It was during this desperate time that Mrs. Anderson, Chloe's mother, entered my life. To thank her for helping my mom out at the market one day, I picked a large bunch of roses for her one morning. I also brought some mushrooms I had gathered earlier that day. Every year during that season, I would go mushroom hunting in the pre-dawn hours to sell them and earn a little money. My mom's attitude always improved slightly whenever I brought them home. It was also around this time that I overheard Chloe's grandmother talking to her about supporting children in mountain villages. Mrs. Anderson had said, "Our family isn't particularly wealthy, but helping others is a blessing." A seed of an idea was planted in my heart. I wasn't sure if our area officially qualified as a mountain village, but I was desperate enough to try anything. Mrs. Anderson was delighted with the roses. They were a variety that bloomed every month, and back then, they were the brightest color I had ever seen. I knew where all the rose bushes grew around the village and town. For 4 or 5 consecutive days, I kept bringing her bouquets. Afraid she might get tired of them, I even snuck some lotus flowers from a neighbor's pond for her. She gently chided me. "Kiddo, the roses are beautiful, but the person who owns the lotus pond might have something to say if they catch you. I really do love the roses." In that moment of kindness, I saw my chance. I sought help from someone I barely knew. I promised I would pay every penny back, begging and calling it a loan, saying much more than I should have. She just listened patiently, then got an ice cream from her fridge, patted me on the shoulder, and said calmly, "Don't be afraid. Heaven helps those who help themselves. You're a brave boy, and I'm happy to help you." Helping someone like me was a complicated affair, going beyond just providing money for my education. My mom wouldn't simply agree to leave me alone. She was fixated on me bringing in money as quickly as possible. After Mrs. Anderson agreed to help, I pleaded with my mom in every way I could think of. I tried everything, kneeling, crying, making endless promises. I promised to give her all the money I earned from part-time jobs since my tuition and meals would be covered, but this only made her angrier. "Don't think I don't know your little schemes," she spat. "How much can you earn from part-time work? Others who didn't go to school can earn at least $4,000 to $5,000 a month in a factory. Can you bring in that much for me? And who would be so kind as to fund your studies without any strings attached? You're probably just making up excuses to avoid going to work. You—" Her curses became uglier and uglier. Watching her, spit flying from her mouth with every insult, I was overwhelmed with a suffocating despair. No matter how hard I tried, it seemed I would never escape the fate of having to drop out and work in a factory. Was I really just supposed to accept it? In my darkest hour, Mrs. Anderson took the initiative to persuade my mom. She even offered to hire her as a live-in nanny, with the express condition that she would not stop me from continuing my studies. I had an uneasy feeling about it, based on my understanding of my mother, but I had no other choice. Initially, things went smoothly. Chloe and her brother Daniel were incredibly kind to me. Daniel would give me some of his old clothes, and Chloe shared her study materials. My handwriting was terrible, but hers was sharp and graceful. I admired it and tried to imitate her style. When she discovered this, instead of getting upset, she patiently taught me some calligraphy. During the summer break, I worked at a clothing store near their home in the city. At first, Chloe and Daniel would come and hang out with me during my breaks. After one trip to the amusement park, I refused to go again. It was just too expensive. Even with a student discount, it was $180 a ticket. I barely made that much in a single day, working a 10-hour shift. They offered to pay for me, but I already felt like I was imposing too much by having their mother support my education. One shouldn't be too greedy. Chloe wasn't upset with my reluctance. She just said softly, "It's okay. Do what you need to do. I believe you'll be able to afford these things on your own someday." Daniel got a little annoyed, saying I was making my life unnecessarily tough, but he would still sneak anti-inflammatory medicine and Band-Aids into my bag when he saw the blisters on my feet from my cheap shoes. I thought they were a wonderful family. I vowed not to be a burden and planned to repay them as soon as I graduated. Later, my high school entrance exam results came out. I ranked in the top 50 of the entire county. It wasn't as good as Chloe and Daniel's scores, but it was the absolute best I could do. Mrs. Anderson was genuinely happy for me, saying it was impressive to achieve that given my circumstances. She took us all out to celebrate, and later used her connections to transfer my school records to the city so I could be in the same class as Chloe. Back in the town middle school, I'd sometimes come across difficult problems that even the teachers couldn't explain properly. It made learning much tougher. Here, even though I was behind at first, there was always someone to help. Chloe and Daniel would often chat with me about my studies, and I gradually caught up. For a fleeting moment, I thought this kind of peaceful life could last. Then my mom started working as their live-in nanny. One evening, Chloe and her brother came back from a friend's birthday party. Out of nowhere, my mom jabbed her finger at my head, her voice filled with frustration. "Can't you put more effort into this? Don't you know you should follow them? If your future wife runs off, where will you go crying then?" Just as she finished her sentence, Daniel pushed the door open. "Alex, how are you going to win her?" he asked, his expression completely dark. He gave me a cold, dismissive glance before heading upstairs. Honestly, the situation was disgusting, and my mom often hinted at similar ideas. She'd say things like, "Why would they be so nice to you for no reason?" Small things, like asking me to pass a piece of fruit to Chloe when everyone was around, seemed to irritate Daniel and the others immensely. My mom had hardly ever thought much of me. As a kid, I did more work around the house than my brother, and she'd just claim I liked to show off or that I was born to suffer. My brother, she claimed, was the smart one, destined to enjoy a good life. Then, when I worked hard in school and pulled way ahead of him academically, she'd dismiss it, saying grades didn't matter and that bookworms never achieve much. But when the Anderson family showed appreciation for me, my mom became convinced of my worth, though for all the wrong reasons. I would often respond by wondering aloud why they were kind to me, suggesting it was because I seemed like a pitiful stray dog. Should stray dogs expect to be taken in just because someone shows them a little kindness? I'd ask her. That day she was shaking with anger, calling me useless and spineless, saying I would have to rely on my brother for the rest of my life. Whatever, I didn't care anymore. I would let her believe whatever she wanted. After that incident, it felt like an invisible barrier had been erected between me and the Anderson kids. Chloe became more polite, but also more distant. Things hit rock bottom on Chloe's 18th birthday. She excitedly invited Leo, the guy she liked, to her party. She quietly asked me to make sure none of the food contained peanuts, because he was severely allergic. I knew my mother all too well. Chloe had a crush on Leo, a fact Daniel would often joke about. If my mom found out, she might try to mess things up to push her own agenda. So I didn't mention the allergy specifically. I just told her that Mrs. Anderson didn't want any peanuts served because a guest disliked them, and that she'd lose her pay if she didn't comply. To be absolutely safe, I stayed in the kitchen all morning, personally removing any dish or ingredient that contained peanuts. I thought everything was fine. But during the party, Leo's face turned from pale to a terrifying shade of purple, and they had to call an ambulance. I sat on the living room couch until late into the night. When Chloe finally came back from the hospital, she had a look in her eyes I had never seen before. Cold, and filled with a profound disgust. I tried to explain, but she just slapped me hard across the face. "You make me sick," she hissed. Her words and the sharp sting of the slap echoed in the quiet night. Everyone came out of their rooms, the lights flicked on, and in that moment any scrap of dignity I had left was obliterated. I tried to speak, but no words came out. Daniel chimed in, his voice laced with venom. "Don't get involved with people like them. Throw those parasites out." I just stood there, taking it all in, waiting for their verdict. In the end, Mrs. Anderson didn't make us leave, but I never forgot the humiliation of that day. Everyone assumed my mother and I had deliberately snuck peanuts into the food. Daniel talked about calling the cops, accusing us of attempted murder, since Leo was his close friend. My mom, having never faced a situation like this before, cried and denied everything. But nobody believed her. She turned her anger on me, grabbing me and slapping me until I could taste blood in my mouth. She ranted, "I told you, you don't have the life of a young master. Why did you act like one? If you hadn't been dreaming of a better life every single day, I wouldn't have to be a nanny here and deal with all this." She blamed me for wanting to get an education, but to the others, her words sounded like a confession of my supposed malicious intent. Daniel got even angrier after hearing that. "Alex, what have we ever done to you? You're just a kid. Don't you have any shame? What kind of thoughts go through your head when you look at my sister every day?" I looked at him, stunned, his words dripping with accusation. That day I felt stripped of all human dignity. When Mrs. Anderson returned, the nightmare finally paused. She was shocked at the chaos, and, after getting a handle on what happened, informed everyone that the public areas of the house were monitored by cameras and that all the food could be tested. She scolded everyone, and then wanted to take me to put medicine on my wounds. I held her arm, trying to keep my voice from shaking as I pleaded, "Auntie, can we please check the cameras first?" "Alex, but your injuries—" I couldn't look at her, my eyes welling with tears that were ready to fall. "Please." Finally, the footage showed that I had meticulously removed all peanut-related items and checked everything carefully. My mom had barely left her room the entire day, but that wasn't enough for some of them. A friend of Daniel's claimed they could have done it before coming inside. In short, you just have to be cautious so you don't let a wolf into your house. Another friend chimed in with agreement. Mrs. Anderson didn't respond to him. She just took a deep breath and said firmly, "I trust Alex's character. I like him, and that's why I keep him around. Since there are friends here who doubt him, I can't let him carry the reputation of a murderer at such a young age. Let's have all of today's food and drink sent out for testing." I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. My face was wet as I quietly said, "Auntie, I'll pay you back for the testing fees later." Testing takes time, especially back then, when there weren't many labs willing to take on such jobs. The results would take at least 30 working days. I couldn't stay there any longer. I applied to live at the school dorms, but with only 2 weeks left until the college entrance exams, finding a spot was chaotic. Mrs. Anderson was also extremely worried. She reached out to me privately several times, assuring me that she would prove my innocence. They hadn't fired my mom yet. She was just shifted from cooking to cleaning duties. I didn't have any extra money to rent a place on my own. I'm not exceptionally smart, and throughout high school I had barely done any part-time jobs because I didn't want to waste the precious opportunity I had begged so pathetically for. So I stayed there, living under a cloud of suspicion until the graduation party that followed the entrance exams. After what happened with Chloe that night, I just couldn't stay a moment longer. Aside from tutoring kids, I also got a job as a server at a hot pot restaurant. Since the shift started in the midday, I could manage both jobs. I asked the manager about staff dormitories and moved out as soon as my request was approved. As for my mom, I lied and told her I'd send her money as soon as I got paid. While I was waiting for my exam results, I barely went back to the Andersons' house. I only returned once when I heard Mrs. Anderson was back from a business trip, thinking it might be my last chance to see her. I secretly bought her a bouquet of roses to express my gratitude. In the past, without any money, I could only afford cheap knockoffs like carnations. I wasn't sure how I could ever repay her kindness, or if I ever would be able to, but I was genuinely thankful. That day as I was passing Chloe's study, I overheard her drunkenly confiding in her friend Sarah. "You know what? I wasn't even drunk that night with Alex. I think I might have mental issues. All I could think about was Leo confessing to Megan. I felt so pathetic after all these years. I just wanted to see if anyone could be more pathetic than me." She slapped herself, then looked dazed as she added, "But I regret it now." I couldn't listen anymore. Mrs. Anderson was on a phone call in the garden. I left the roses and a small card in the living room and ran out of the house. As I left, I felt like an empty shell. Passing by a storefront, I saw my reflection in the blurry glass and felt completely lost. At that moment, I thought I was the most despicable person on earth. She wasn't drunk. What did she see me as? She had called out Leo's name on purpose. What was she trying to see? Me, begging like a dog? How low would I be willing to stoop? I trembled all over. Any past spark of affection or admiration I held for her completely extinguished. From the very start, even her initial kindness was probably nothing more than tossing scraps to a stray cat or dog. And still, I had harbored foolish fantasies. I thought maybe, just maybe, I was a little different to her. I had hoped that just sticking it out until I finished my college applications and received my acceptance letter would be enough. But things escalated far beyond my expectations. Leo and Megan broke up because their chosen colleges were in different cities. Just when everyone thought Chloe would start chasing after Leo again, a scandal about me and Chloe at the hotel spread like wildfire around the school. Someone sent me a screenshot of a group chat. They marveled at my supposed manipulative ways, claiming I had not only caused Leo's allergic reaction on Chloe's birthday, but had then taken advantage of her when she was drunk to seduce her. They speculated about where my expertise in such matters came from. Otherwise, how could I have stolen a girl so devoted to the school's heartthrob? I didn't reply to the person who sent the text. My hands were shaking so much I could barely hold my phone. When the final scores were released, I was terrified to go to school to complete my college applications. But this was what I had worked for all these years. It was my only chance to escape the swamp my life had become. I took back roads to school, but I couldn't avoid running into some classmates. Some of them didn't even bother to hide their pointing and whispering. I couldn't handle it, so I hid in the bathroom. There, too, I overheard some guys talking. Who would have thought? He acts so innocent, but he's bold enough to throw himself at someone like that. I wanted to charge out and confront them, but I didn't have the courage to face the gossip and their accusing eyes. I just hid, endured, and waited until the crowd dispersed. I waited until the teacher had called my name a few times. Only when I thought everyone had left did I dare to come out. I didn't expect to run into Chloe right by the entrance to the office. She looked like she wanted to say something. I pretended not to see her and tried to walk past. Suddenly, she grabbed my arm. As I was about to shove her off, she said, "Alex, I'm sorry." I was stunned, but I tried to keep my expression calm. I wasn't sure which specific incident she was apologizing for, but none of them mattered anymore. I forced a smile. If there's nothing else, I should go. "It wasn't me who told them," she said. "Told them what?" I kept pretending not to know. She paused, then sighed. "If you don't know, then never mind. Just don't linger after you're done with your application. I'll go with you." I pushed her hand away and took a few steps back. "No need." She mumbled something, then held my hand again. I applied to a college in H-Town. I didn't understand why she was suddenly telling me this. Before, when I had subtly asked about her plans, she never gave me a straight answer. But now I just wanted to get away from her. I made some small talk. "That's nice. I heard the phoenix flowers in H-Town are beautiful." I hadn't even finished my sentence when she said excitedly, "Videos don't do them justice. Would you want to see them?" "Maybe. I heard one of the colleges there has a lot of them. Maybe they'll still be in bloom when we visit, or even during summer break." "All right, I've got to go," I said, trying to pull away. "The teacher's waiting." "Should we meet at a university?" There was a hint of pleading hope in her eyes. I avoided her gaze. I noticed what looked like a few fresh scratches on her face, but I didn't feel anything anymore. I used to be the person who would carefully hand her an umbrella on rainy days, lying that I had another one for myself, just so I could watch her run off to share it with Leo. Back then, I felt so low, but I was just glad to be able to help her in any small way. Little did I know, the more humble you make yourself, the less people seem to notice you. I didn't want to make her any promises. I didn't understand her intentions. Did she just not want to lose a loyal puppy? What she thought didn't matter anymore. Suddenly, the teacher's voice broke the tension. "Alex, aren't you coming in?" I pulled my arm firmly from her grasp and walked away. When I filled out my college preference forms, I picked the city furthest away. J-Town. I wanted to say goodbye to everything and everyone here. To keep studying, I had swallowed my pride. I had been cunning, manipulative, and had even pleaded with my own mother. I didn't care about anything anymore except clawing my way to a better life. All I ever wanted was to leave that small, suffocating village. I never wanted to have to sell my hair for money ever again. For these goals, I had given up on my dignity a long time ago. Both my dignity and my soul had been trampled into the dust on the day of that public judgment. Now all I could do was cling to college as my one and only lifeline. I would pack up the small, broken pieces of my dignity and the tattered remnants of my soul and take them to a place where no one knew me. I wanted a fresh start. I wanted to forget everyone here, with the sole exception of someday repaying Mrs. Anderson's kindness. Other than that, I never wanted to have anything to do with this place or these people ever again. I cashed out my earnings from the restaurant early and found a front desk job at a hotel in J-Town online. My mom had been holding on to my ID card, afraid I wouldn't give her my income once I started working. What she didn't know was that the ID was already void. I had secretly taken the family register and applied for a new ID without anyone knowing. When I was younger, I desperately craved her love. I thought if she just loved me, I could be anything she wanted. I wouldn't eat snacks, telling everyone I didn't like them. I'd get up at the crack of dawn to do chores, saying I couldn't sleep. I'd only eat the bony fishtails, claiming they were my favorite part. I wanted so desperately to help her, to love her. I even ran to get help when that man, my father, hit her, or put myself between them to try and stop it. And what did I get in return? A slap from each of them, and a snarled, "Mind your own business." Through countless rejections, blame, resentment, and jealousy, I finally realized that I could never awaken her maternal instincts for me. I didn't choose to die, nor did I submit to living my life as a dog or a slave, so I decided to live on without a savior. I became my own. Even if it meant being base, humble, or embarrassed, I survived. Before I left for good, I went to Mrs. Anderson's company. She took me to her office, telling me the test results for the food would be in 2 days, and that I shouldn't worry. I smiled and took a pearl necklace from my bag. I couldn't afford anything fancy, but I didn't want to leave without thanking the person who had helped me at my absolute lowest point. She knew it was from my hard-earned money. She touched my head affectionately and let me put the necklace on her, reminding me not to do this again. "There will be plenty of opportunities to give gifts when you start working," she said kindly. Then she handed me a thick stack of cash. I refused, but she stuffed it into my bag with a tone that left no room for refusal. "Alex, are you upset with Auntie?" How could I be? She was so kind and good to me. As I was leaving, I spotted a handsome black and gold pen on her desk. "Auntie, can I look at this pen?" "What, do you like it? It's quite unique." "Then it's yours. I found it in the storeroom, but it's still quite handy. Thanks." Walking out of Mrs. Anderson's office, the sun was glaring. I don't know why, but tears started to stream down my face again. I had promised myself I wouldn't care, yet why did I still feel a little heartbroken? The poor always want to give away the best things they have. This pen was the gift I had bought for Chloe's 18th birthday. I had sold my hair again to afford it, but this time it was me holding the scissors. I doubt she ever even looked at it. It was better to pretend I never gave it to her. The acceptance letter came directly from my homeroom teacher. Out of the 5 options on the application, I had only picked one school, in J-Town. The busiest places mean your work is more valuable. I was going to earn myself a home. 2 days after I came back from getting the letter, Chloe had inquired about my workplace and went to the Hot Pot restaurant to find me. At that time, the test results weren't out yet, but she told me later that she already believed I wouldn't do such a thing. She didn't know why she had lost control that night at her party. Maybe it was teenage pride. At home, her mom would subtly hint at a future between us. At school, her friends would joke that I was her childhood sweetheart. She couldn't stand the jokes. She couldn't take the teasing looks from others. Unconsciously, she blamed me for all of it. She started to distance herself, treating me coldly. But my submissive, quiet demeanor only infuriated her more. She even started to doubt her mother's words, that my past closeness and open admiration for her were simply rooted in my difficult family circumstances. She didn't want to think about it. The more she thought, the more irritated she became. Besides, she liked Leo, right? Leo was lively and confident, the most handsome boy at school. She must have always liked him. She gave him gifts, waited for him before and after school. He never outright rejected her, but he never accepted her either. Until that birthday party. When Leo had the severe allergic reaction and almost went into shock, everyone said it was her childhood sweetheart acting out of jealousy. Her mind exploded. When Leo was finally stable, close to midnight, she returned home and faced me, my face pale and scared. She remembered she had told me about the allergy. She remembered the way I used to look at her. Liking someone always shows in your eyes, even when you cover your mouth. A rush of conflicting emotions surged through her, and she slapped me. When the lights came on, she immediately regretted it. My face was already swollen, and I was just staring at her, my gaze dropping after only a flash of hurt. She wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. Then Daniel walked out, worked up and saying all kinds of terrible things, and she instinctively dragged him away. After that day, I pretty much avoided her completely. I'd leave early in the morning and come back late at night. If we happened to cross paths in the hallway, I'd pretend not to see her and quickly duck into my room. She couldn't figure out why, but the more she thought about it, the angrier she got. She must have wanted me to stay away forever. That was until the graduation party. I avoided looking at her the entire day, and then Leo ended up confessing to one of her best friends. It was the first time she had felt truly and utterly defeated. Was it all because Leo confessed to Megan? She wasn't sure. She just drank a lot. The thing is, so did I. I drank with anyone who offered me a toast. I was so drunk I couldn't see straight. Someone told her they liked me, and all she did was giggle. I guess her affection came with conditions. She didn't feel like dealing with me, but it was like I was trying to challenge myself, just drinking more and more. She wanted to take me home, but was worried about my mom freaking out, so she took me to a hotel instead. A drunk me was apparently pretty bold. I actually dared to kiss her. Things got out of control. She snapped back to reality, thinking, how could I like Alex? I should like Leo. She felt completely humiliated. At her lowest point with Leo, she felt she had stooped as low as one could get with me. She was unsure if I was really lucid, so she called out Leo's name tentatively. After she did it, a wave of panic set in. She had no idea what she was doing. Trying to calm herself down, she bit down on my pale shoulder. When she looked up, she saw tears on my face. For the first time, she couldn't face me at all. After that, I avoided her even more. We didn't make eye contact or exchange a single word. She would often space out, my tear-stained face flashing in her mind. She thought of herself as a total jerk, and regret started to settle in. But she didn't know what to do. She convinced herself that she could never like me, that she just felt guilty. Later, she ended up drunkenly confiding in her best friends about it. Life carried on until college application day. Then she found out that everyone at school was talking about us. She got into a fight with Sarah, then with other classmates. She even got hurt in the process. Scared that I'd found out, she waited forever for me to show up at school, but I didn't. Panic set in deep in her heart. When she finally called and texted, there was no response. She was almost ready to call the police when I finally showed up. I still acted like I didn't want to talk to her, and what's more, I didn't even seem to notice the bruises on her face. She thought I must be so fickle. But then I told her I liked phoenix trees, and she felt a surge of curiosity about my college plans. She might head to H-Town to see the phoenix trees, and maybe for something more. That day ended up being the last time we saw each other. Chloe went home and teased Daniel about a bouquet of roses on the table. Didn't think someone would send you roses? No, those are from Alex, for our mom, he said. Probably hoping she'll keep supporting his college studies. Can't you tell the flowers are nearly dead? How long has it been since he dropped them off? That was when Mom got back from her trip, Chloe said, standing in shock. She had known for a while. She sat on the couch, possibly for hours, then got up and left, overwhelmed and troubled. Before she knew it, she was at my workplace, looking around, but I wasn't there. She eventually asked a waiter and learned I had quit. Where was I? She kept quiet because she didn't want my family to find me. She guessed I might have run away. She hoped I ran. But where would I go? Would I head to H-Town? She wasn't sure. Phoenix trees aren't exclusive to H-Town. What else could have drawn me there? The test results came in, but the one who needed them most was gone. None of the food or drinks from the party had contained any peanuts. So how did Leo have an allergic reaction? One day, months later, Leo had another reaction. It turned out that a local bakery he frequented had both peanut-laden bread and peanut-free options. A new employee had done a poor job cleaning the baking trays, leading to cross-contamination. When Chloe heard this, she froze, speechless for a long time. Later, she watched the security footage from her birthday party, from the time after she had taken Leo to the hospital. On the screen, a frail, cat-like boy was dragged over and slapped repeatedly. The video was filled with abusive words, and surrounded by onlookers, it looked like outright abuse. She couldn't bear to watch and left the room, struggling to breathe. Afterward, she visited her grandmother in my old village and tried to find out more about my past without being obvious. It turned out she had only ever seen the tip of the iceberg. How does someone live through such a harsh existence? Anyone could yell at me, hit me with a broom, a stick, or a bamboo rod. Even scalding water and hot soup were tossed my way. Moving like a feral cat, I had scrambled to make a living, running all over the countryside, catching fish in the summer rain, drenched and barefoot, racing to the dam, nearly being swept away by the current. Countless times before dawn, I'd be in the woods picking mushrooms. In that part of the countryside, burials are done in the ground, and she visited those woods, filled with countless graves. Despite the daylight, she felt deeply unsettled. Did I really have guts, or did I just have no other choice? She used to think I was sycophantic and grasping, but now, standing in the places where I grew up, she realized that just surviving would have been nearly impossible. While she was there, the roses were in bloom. It was a variety that bloomed every month, and many were blossoming. Standing by the flowers, she felt completely lost. It was only after I had vanished that summer that she finally realized she liked me. She often remembered my wide, animated eyes, which were once full of a wild vitality. Initially, when I looked at her, they held something more. I probably used to think highly of myself back then. When our eyes met, mine sparkled like the stars in a country night sky. Understanding her feelings came far too late, with no chance to express them. Time has a funny way of sneaking up on you. Looking back, it's all been a bit of a struggle. She suddenly remembered me giving her a gift once, a pen. She hurried home and tore through her things, trying to find it. Nothing. Finally, her mom said she had taken it. When Chloe asked what happened to the pen, her mom's answer left her speechless. Alex was leaving. Alex was always so careful about money, so frugal. How could he possibly afford a fancy pen worth hundreds? She couldn't even imagine. At a later class reunion, some people started talking about me. Someone said, Alex has always been kind of vain. No money, but he still buys expensive pens, even when he's just working odd jobs. A classmate had seen me shopping for it once. The words hit her like a bullet right between the eyes. She had been given something precious back then, and she just didn't see it at the time. For the first 2 years of college, she heard nothing about me from our strict homeroom teacher. At first, the teacher said it was a privacy issue. Later on, she just said flat out, "Wouldn't it be better if he cut all ties with this place?" Chloe couldn't argue with that right away. But time doesn't make things easier. It just makes them linger. After pestering the teacher relentlessly, she finally learned the city and the school I had gone to. She went looking for me, but luck wasn't on her side. I had gone abroad as an exchange student. She poked around, asking about my life there. I seemed to be doing well, winning scholarships and still working hard. I had top grades and was even hosting school events. Maybe that's really him, she thought, downloading a few photos of me. In the pictures, I looked the same, yet different. My eyes, especially. They used to resemble those of a scared little animal, Now all they held was a bright, sparkly light. Sometimes people can be a little crazy. She bought a ticket to go see me, but then the country I was in plunged into political chaos. She was even more anxious now. How would I get through this? I had suffered enough and deserved some peace. It never seemed to happen. Her mom slapped her, asking why she hadn't done anything sooner. But people can be so naive. They can't even read their own hearts. At that age, pride is everything, if only she had known. No, even without knowing, she should have been kinder. She had never felt so terrible about herself before. On Mrs. Anderson's 50th birthday, I returned to South City for the first time. I had been hiding all these years, had changed all my contact information. It was probably me overthinking it. Except for the lady on the news looking for her missing kid, no one was really searching for me. I had lucked into a few good opportunities and made some money. When I graduated from college, I bought myself a tiny apartment in the city where I worked. It was my first real home. It was less than 30 square meters, but I couldn't sleep the entire night after I moved in. I touched everything, looked into every corner. Life had been surprisingly kind to me. I already had a place to call my own. I planted roses on the balcony, and they bloomed profusely every month. Seeing them filled me with a sense of hope. Although I was tired, life seemed more promising with every passing day. I ran a small online store and had a stable job. Plus, I received yearly talent subsidies from the city. During my 3rd year of work, I paid off my mortgage early. That's when I decided it was time to go back. I visited my old high school first and saw my former teacher. I sponsored the education of 2 female students from difficult backgrounds. Then I went to the Andersons' house for Mrs. Anderson's big 50th birthday party. I brought a small bouquet of golden roses. It was all I could afford. The moment she saw me, her eyes welled up with tears. She lightly hit my arm a few times, though not with much force. "Where have you been all these years, Alex?" "I'm sorry," she said, her voice thick with emotion. I wiped her tears away and grinned. "Don't cry. It's your birthday. It's a time to be happy." "Alex, she began, but I cut her off gently. "It's all in the past, Auntie." She tried to get me to stay for the party, but it felt awkward after so many years. I was about to make my excuses and leave. "Alex, am I really that bad of company? Can't you stay for even 20 minutes? Mrs. Anderson frowned, holding my arm and inviting me into the home theater, mentioning that Daniel was in there. She quickly added, "I can have him leave if you're uncomfortable." No, it's fine," I said, waving my hand. Before all the misunderstandings, Daniel had actually been quite nice to me. No one is obligated to be kind to you, and besides, we were just kids back then. As I walked down the hall, I met a deep, intense gaze, and that's how I ran into Chloe again. She said nothing. She just stared at me and followed me the whole way. In the theater room, Daniel was watching a movie, the famous Korean film Parasite. The normally composed Chloe rushed over and shut it off in a panic. When Daniel realized it was me, he was taken aback. He fumbled. "Alex, I didn't know. Really, I didn't." I chuckled. "No worries. It's a great movie. I like it too. Long time no see, Daniel." When I think back, my most vivid memory of him is from when I first visited their house as a kid. He had excitedly pulled out all sorts of toys to show me, one of the rare moments of genuine joy from my past. "Long time, Alex," he replied, a smile spreading across his face. Then his expression crumpled, and he started to choke up. He walked over swiftly and hugged me hard. "I'm sorry, Alex. I was awful back then. I'm so sorry." The whole birthday party, neither Chloe nor I spoke a word to each other. Daniel kept nudging her nervously. She finally snapped back to reality just as I was leaving and walked me out. I was about to refuse, but I caught Mrs. Anderson's expression. She seemed to have something unsaid stuck in her throat, so I nodded. I found that the entire garden was now filled with roses. An awkward air filled the space between us. She seemed to have so much to say, but couldn't get the words out. Eventually, I laughed it off. "Chloe, it's all behind us. Don't worry about it." "But I can't let it go," she blurted out, grabbing my arm suddenly. "Alex, I've been searching for you for so long. Alex, what are you up to?" A new figure appeared at my side, holding my hand tightly, her fingers intertwining with mine. Chloe looked from my hand to the woman beside me. Who is she?" "She's my wife, Clara," I said. Chloe looked at us in disbelief, frozen in place. You're married?" I smiled politely and was then led away by Clara. On that sunny, flower-filled afternoon, I finally put the past behind me for good. When Chloe had first started looking for me, my old homeroom teacher had told me. I had firmly asked her not to reveal any of my information to anyone. I just wanted to move forward, to never look back. Over the years, I figured she had been searching for me. But there was no way for us to reunite. Too much had happened. What I couldn't forgive wasn't just the things she did that hurt me. More than that, I couldn't forgive how deeply I had compromised myself back then. Over these past years, I have rebuilt myself from the ground up. I treated myself as my favorite person, giving that person the absolute best. I helped her rebuild her life, bought her gifts, made plans for her future. I made sure she got to bed early, ate on time, and learned as much as she could. I am the person I love the most, and I am committed to creating a better life and providing spiritual nourishment for myself. The past can't be changed, but in all the unknown years ahead, I will strive to create the most beautiful experiences for this body and this soul. When I first left, my mom was furious and caused several scenes at my old high school. After being thrown out by security multiple times, she finally gave up. Later, she asked my teacher if she could just have one phone call with me. I refused, but I did contact my brother and made the final arrangements. I told him I would only fulfill the country's legal requirements for parental support, and it would be handled through a third-party service. He asked why I didn't want to meet them even once. I was straightforward. In the grand scheme of things, we aren't truly family. We were just randomly assigned to each other by fate. What else is there between us but resentment and disgust? Our relationship is such that just thinking about it brings me pain. My offer, as I stated, is my final word. If that's not acceptable, then they can take legal action. The phone call ended. The roses on my balcony bloomed brightly in the afternoon sun. In the kitchen, the person I love was making dinner. The pink evening sky was so gentle, and the breeze was light. Every day is a good day.